Well, the commercial break happened, and now the Dow is in a little bit of a positive territory. So a little bit of volatility as people price in some of the discussions this morning, as the White House says over 50 countries have contacted the White House looking to negotiate or at least discuss tariffs, and then the president having that meeting with Netanyahu today at 2 o'clock, a press conference at 2:30 during Sandra's show.
Yeah, and he had just, the president put out a statement that he had just gotten off the phone with the Japanese prime minister, that they were having productive conversations, and now just hitting, which seems to be when the markets turned around here, was that the EU is talking with the United States amid this tariff battle. And the statement from the EU is, we are ready to discuss with the U.S., but solutions need to be mutual advantage. So what you're getting is the sense that they're coming to the table.
Communications,
the
right?
Negotiations are happening.
Sure.
And that's when we saw the turnarounds, the Dow.
Tell us about what it means that we actually have a president who's putting middle America first.
Well, middle America has suffered from the constraints of China for far too long. When we have factories and corporations that are sending the businesses over there and outsourcing resources, outsourcing employment, outsourcing products that could be made here in this country, that allowed China to become the #1 superpower in the world when it comes to economics. And for so long, we were the concentration. We were the superpower. Back in 2000, America was the one that was manufacturing all products here, whether it was the auto industry, whether it was the steel industry, whether it was the car industry, whatever it might be. We had all of those jobs here. But now China has become that one because they benefit from child slave labor. They benefit from low costs. And corporations have bought in that for so long because no executive will stand up and say, we need to make these things here. We need to bring businesses back here and let America manufacture what we were always supposed to manufacture, and give Americans jobs, give small businesses and corporations that are founded here the opportunity to employ Americans first. And now we have seen the art of the deal really take place. We've seen an extreme position created. We've seen a compromise created. We've seen statements be made that will control the narrative and shift the markets to a version of a panic. And now everybody has came to the table. All these other countries, the 50-plus countries, the 70-plus countries have all came to a compromise to not retaliate against America. But yet the only retaliatory country that happened was China. What Trump, Bessent, and so many others always thought would happen, that China would be the only one to say, we have abused America for now, and we're going to continue to abuse them. And now America is paying it back in full and aligning with all their trade partners against the main enemy in the world, that is the country of China and the Chinese Communist Party. And now that that has happened, America will benefit. America has executed the art of the deal. The markets will prosper. American companies and corporations will prosper, and the American worker will prosper.
It's amazing because, this is one thing, where once again we have the sort of, one movie on two screens situation. So, people are the panicking, some of the panicking who, and God, God forbid, by the way, panicking are not welcome here on Human Events Daily. We don't serve you in this restaurant. You are not allowed to sit with us at the table for lunch. Panicking are not welcome. No, this is a show that is made by patriots for patriots, and it's about patriots. And so you look at some of this stuff, and here's something up from a guy on Twitter. It just says, look, Trump got exactly what he wanted all along. The yuan has been massively devalued. China's economy is imploding and boxed in. Countries are lining up to make new deals with the United States of America. The GOP is now working on a new reconciliation bill that will allow for corporate tax cuts to become permanent, which will allow for what? Why do you want the corporate tax cuts in right now? Because we want corporations building here in the United States of America. You have to have an incentive for them to want to come in. And then finally, the 10% tariffs across the board. Think of this. It's actually kind of funny. If Trump had just said, we're going to do 10% tariffs across the board, everybody freaking out, right? But what he doesn't do that. He says, no, we're going to do reciprocal taraffs, and there's going to be this formula, there's going to be all this stuff, and it's going to be, this nonsense, this huge high number. And then all of a sudden he leaves that for a couple of days and says, all right, how about just 10%? Yay! And everybody's cheering, and the stock market goes up when people say, wait a minute, did Trump just raise tariffs on the entire country and got everyone to cheer for it at the same time? Yeah, he did. And in the middle, what did he do? 125% on China, plus exposed them to the entire world. So you made a fatal error, Mr. Xi. You didn't trust the plan. You panicked. You blinked. You bet against President Trump and you bet against America. That wasn't a very wise idea. Oh, no, 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 no. No, and this is something no one has ever dealt with China. Again, in 20 years that I've been traveling back and forth from China, that I've been learning about China, no one in the United States has ever dealt with them like this. Kenny Cody, there's so many politicians who say they want to change the status quo. We're actually seeing one who's done it.
Exactly. I mean, he has followed through, promises made, promises kept, and he's the only politician of my lifetime or in many different lifetimes that has followed through on everything. He promised these tariffs. He has promised since 2012 to fight back against China and trade partners that were abusing the United States. So I don't know why anybody is panicking or anybody is surprised that he has got what he wanted. Anybody who has ever watched Donald Trump operate in politics, business, or anything else knows that in the end, he sets out an extreme position. He looks for a compromise, and he comes to the deal that he wanted in the original in the first place. And that has happened with keeping these 10% baseline tariffs, removing reciprocal tariffs, and increasing it to a 125% tariff on America's number one economic enemy, that is the Chinese Communist Party. And another thing, the CCP has so much control over some of these countries that you know that they're relishing and celebrating it as well. The fact that we have an 125% China on their biggest trade partner, that is the United States, some of these countries are literally funded by China. Either they move their companies or corporations. Corporations have foundations in some of these smaller countries. They are so relieved right now that not only are these reciprocal tariffs being lifted off of them, but they want to see somebody take China on because they know they can't. And they are going to be more willing to bring jobs here. They're going to be more willing to move for some corporations here to give American workers jobs and to have a better trade relationship, because China finally has an enemy in the United States for the first time in nearly a quarter of a century. And now that we're going to be able to do that, America's going to be put first, the American worker will be put first, and all these other countries that we have trade relationships will be salivating and celebrating along with President Trump.
Look, and that's why you have Kevin O'Leary out there going up and saying that we shouldn't have 100. Kevin O'Leary, by the way, got his wish, because he was saying we have 104% tariffs. And he said that's not enough. He said my problem in it should be higher. He said why not go to 400? So President Trump said, all right, Kevin, maybe not 400 yet, but let's go to 125. Let's crank it up just a little bit. We're going to crank it up a little bit. And Kevin O'Leary said, let's squeeze their heads against the wall, because nobody's ever treated China. I've talked about this. People would go over there and you would have these leaders and they would say, oh, China, it's so wonderful. And we could have a system like that in the United States. And a lot of COVID-19 and a lot of the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset stuff that we saw was actually just a transfer of the China model and the China system to the United States. And the idea was that, we would have these new policies and this new technocratic government, and we were going to make China into the factory of the world. And it was never true. It was always a lie. We became more like China. They did not become more free. They did not become more like us. They became the same way they were, and they made us more authoritarian on top of it. Last minute, Kenny Cody.
We need to be celebrating this win. Not only can we be celebrating the stocks, the NASDAQ, the Dow, the S&P 500, but we need to be thankful that the world will now look to us as the one country that can fight back against the country that has controlled all of these smaller nations for so long. America has the power, America has the compromise, and we have an executive that is finally going to fight back against the Chinese Communist Party that has deserved backlash for so long. And I'm so glad that this has worked out. And we told you so.